Welcome to today's Excel tip using the XLOOKUP function. The XLOOKUP function was incorporated into Microsoft's suite of functions in 2019. And like many people, I sort of stayed away from it because there were 6 arguments in it and I thought, this is just a little bit too hard. And I've got the VLOOKUP, it's working, and I've got this all organized. So let's pop over and have a look at how the XLOOKUP works. And it has become one of my favorite functions now. So across the top here, I've got the syntax. So you'll notice that the first 3 functions are very much, or arguments are very much like the VLOOKUP. What am I looking for? Where am I going to find it? And where is the answer? And this is where the magic comes in, the last 3 new arguments that are in this. So we're going to explore to have a look at these. What I've done is set up a very simple little table here. I haven't made it a table. I've just left it as the raw cells on the sheet that we're working with. I've got some salary, surname, first name, and ID. One of the great things you'll notice with an XLOOKUP is you don't have to work from left to right. You can work backwards and forwards across this little table here. So I've got 5 little exercises we're going to use, and these will start to show you how these arguments actually work. So on my table here, I'm going to put in my XLOOKUP, and pressing my tab key, it will automatically complete that function for me, and it prompts me down here for the syntax of it. So the first element that's looking for is the lookup. So I'm looking for the word James, comma. It then says, where am I going to find James? I'm going to find James in this area here, in this array that has my first names in it, comma. And when I find the word James, what's the element that you want me to find for you? Well, I want you to find the salary. So again, I'm selecting the cells or the array that has my salary in. One of the things about the XLOOKUP is it is automatically by default an exact match. So here I'm going to do a Control Enter. It will put the answer into that cell, and you'll notice it's come down here, it's found James, and looking in that array of salaries, it's identified that salary and brought it across. Interesting, it doesn't bring over the formatting, so just be aware of that, but that's easy. You can go back into the number formats and reformat that answer for you. So let's start having a look at some of where that magic is. And I'm going to work with, to start with, the 4th argument. So one of the things with the VLOOKUP is when it doesn't find your answer, it just does a #NA. So this time with an XLOOKUP, I'm going to use the 4th argument where it allows me to put a message if it can't find my answer. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for potentially a person's salary, comma. Where do I find that salary? I'm finding that salary down through this area. Now remember that the XLOOKUP is an exact match here, comma. When I find that salary, what do you want to know? I'm going to this time work from on the far right hand side. I'm going to come back to the left, which is again something that the VLOOKUP didn't do easily for us. So I'm going to find the ID number, and then I'm going to put a comma in here, put a hash, and so what's the message that I want to display if I don't find that exact match? And I'm going to say no employee has that number. That's actually, salary in here. So I'm now going to do my Control Enter again, and straight away it's come up and said no employee has that salary. So let's drop a salary in here, and if I put in 95,566 and pressing my Enter, it has automatically come over here and picked up Maya's employment number that we've got. All right. So now that we've had a look at that 4th argument, let's have a look at what the match mode does. Now, as I said, by default, the XLOOKUP is an exact match. So what happens if we want it to look like a VLOOKUP and we're not finding the exact, but the next lowest one from that number we're actually looking for? And you'll find there's two here. We can go below the number or we can go above the number, and I'll just show you what that looks like. So again, I'm putting the formula in here. I'm looking for 120,000, comma, where do I find it? Remember, using that array to identify where that number is potentially going to see. And when I find it, what answer do you want to give? I want Excel to give me the surname, comma. Now, I'm not going to be worried about the fourth argument, so I'm just going to put a comma in there straight away. And now you can see Excel is showing me the different operators that it's got here for this argument. So by default, as I said, an exact match is if you don't put anything in. But if I want to make this work like a VLOOKUP, I'm going to use the -1, which is an exact or the next smallest. So by pressing my tab key here, it will complete that formula for me. I'm going to do a Control Enter. So it's coming on its way down the salary. Now, historically with a VLOOKUP, it would have hit 189,000 and jumped back here. But it goes all the way through and it identifies that the lesser amount from 120 is the one of Angela Williams, and it's 110,000, and that's why it's giving me this. Now, if I change that from a -1 to a 1, which is what it's going to do, is going to identify the largest. And again, if I press Enter, it comes back and picks up this one of Lewis here. So that fifth argument is a great way to try and make it start looking like a VLOOKUP. But more importantly, you have that option, go less or go more. And let's look at the next fabulous piece of this. And that's when I go to use it as a wildcard. So again, if I go to put in my XLOOKUP, I'm looking for an S. Now, you do need to add the wildcard component here. So I'm going to put the amber sign in because we know that's the joiner. Putting in my asterisk, and because the asterisk is text, I need to enclose it in double quotes, comma. So that's what I'm actually looking up. What's potentially going to be an S asterisk. Where is it going to find this? It's going to find it here in the surname, comma. When I find it in the surname, what do I want to know? Actually, I want to know the surname. So I use that array in both the where and the where answer, comma. I'm not worried about the fourth argument, so I'm going to jump over that. And now on the fifth argument, I'm going to come down to that wildcard character. So pressing my tab key here, it will put a 2 in. Again, I'm going to do that Control Enter to close it off. And you can see here, it's looked for an S. Now, if there had been 2 S's in here, it will have picked up the first one as it goes through. And this is why you might use the sixth argument, because I can get it to go to the bottom of the array and work its way back up. Classic is you've downloaded transactions from the bank and you don't want to start at the top and find that first one. You want to start at the bottom of that list and find its way back. So here we go. You'll notice I'm looking for a salary here. I've actually got that salary in twice. So I've got it for Clark and I've also got it for Anderson. But what I want Excel to do is to pick up the bottom one, the latest person who got that salary. So here we go. Again, doing my XLOOKUP. What am I looking for? This here. Where am I finding it? I'm finding it in my salary array. What do you want to know when I found it? I'm going to find out what the person's first name is who's actually got this salary, comma. I'm not worried about if there's no exact match. What I am going to do here is, again, I'm going to get it to not worry about working on, whether it's going to look for an exact match for me. And what I want to do here is I want to search from the last back to the first. So in here, I'm going to press my tab key. It will put in that -1 argument. I'm going to do a Control Enter. And now you can see, as I said, I've got 2 entries here. that work with that match of that salary of 95,566. But because I said use the -1, it started from the bottom and worked its way up. So the XLOOKUP, I think, is a fabulous function. I still use a VLOOKUP every so often, but here is a quick summary of the benefits of an XLOOKUP. Remember, the default is an exact match. You only have to put in 3 arguments, so it's exactly the same as the VLOOKUP. The best thing is it will work, it'll find either left or right, so it doesn't have to have that perfect structure in that table. Again, it also works both vertically and horizontally, so you don't have another function to get to know. I've got one function instead of using index and match, and the 2 wildcards that I the 2 arguments that I really love is that wildcard lookup using a number 2 there for the 5th argument, or getting it to look in reverse, so using the 6th argument and putting a -1 there. So I hope you've enjoyed today's tip, and I hope you start to use your XLOOKUP. Thank you for joining me.